Hi, everyone, and welcome to My Movie Story. I'm your host, Brian, and really excited today to have a longtime good friend of mine on the program. Not just a movie lover, but a movie maker, which you're going to hear about. So, my guest today is young Marcus. He's a youth worker, he's a freelance graphic designer from Melbourne, Australia. Marcus loves to watch movies, as you can probably guess, and play video games, listen to music, and he's also an awesome drum player, too. You can usually find him moshing at hardcore shows, working on some of his creative projects, or just chilling out on the couch with his border collie named Bruno. You can find Marcus on Instagram at Marcus Creates. So that's Marcus and Creates with a K. You can see that on the screen now as well. And he designs movie posters for independent filmmakers. So check out some of his work. It's really awesome. He also does some alternative posters for the films he loves as well, which is awesome. He's also on YouTube at Marcus Creates as well, where you can watch his latest short film, The Thing Next Door. I watched it, scary as hell. Definitely check it out. Very effective. And yeah, really great to have you here, Marcus. Welcome to My Movie Story. How you doing?
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, doing well. How are you going?
Oh, fantastic, mate. Yeah, really been really looking forward to our chat because obviously you and I we go back a
Yeah,
bit and we've had many conversations about movies and what we've seen, what we're planning to see, and it's always a great conversation. So
sure.
now I do have to ask, there's a lot going on in that bio of yours, mate, and I know our listeners are
There
probably
is.
keen to hear about this short film you made, The Thing Next Door. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I've been making short films since I was a little kid, really. And over lockdown, I had all this extra time, as did everyone. And I just got this idea for this short horror film inspired by being trapped in one location, looking out the window and thinking, what if, what is happening outside? And I just came up with this story that was half inspired by a nightmare, half inspired by what I was currently experiencing, and just started making this short horror film with zero budget and just the materials that I had available to me. So
Awesome.
I'm really proud of how it came out, and people can check it out on YouTube if you're curious.
Absolutely. I recommend it, guys. And if you've been wanting to make a short film and you're thinking, like, how can I do this with no budget, just where I am and what I've got? This film is like a little masterclass in that. I was really impressed with the film and what a great time to use that time we all had during lockdown, do something creative and get that out of your system. And yeah, so awesome. Definitely worth a watch. And those who are new to My Movie Story, welcome to the podcast, whether you're watching the video or listening online. And what our show is all about is just talking to everyday movie lovers about three very special movies. And those categories are their favorite all-time movie, which can be a hard choice. We've obviously all got more than one, but there's usually one that really stands out. The second category is a film that changed you or changed your perspective on life and the world. So something that had a really, profound impact on you. And then also a film that you think everyone has to watch at least once in their lifetime. All right. So all the classic masterpieces, or not necessarily classics or even masterpieces, but just a film that deals with a really important subject or is just really original or made in a way that you've never seen before. And it's like an experience in itself. So really keen to hear what your three films are, Marcus. And we might start off with the film that changed you or your perspective on life and the
Whoa.
world. So I have a bit of an inkling that what kind of film it might be, given your creative abilities. But yeah, would you like to tell us what this film is and maybe just describe it a bit for someone who's probably never seen it?
Yeah, so racking my brain to think of something that changed my view or changed me as a person is really difficult. I love to watch films for pure enjoyment, for transformative experiences. And the film that I landed on isn't a masterpiece or a cinematic classic in any means whatsoever, but it had a really profound impact on me because of the time that I watched it. So the film that I chose was Be Kind, Rewind from 2008, directed by Michael Gondry and starring Jack Black and Mos Def.
This video don't work.
Yours looks like this. Look. All it takes is blank.
It's the TV, Mike.
Show me how. Why is it doing that?
Does that happen when you do it?
Uh-oh. What is wrong with you? Why is it doing that when you do that? You're magnetized. You erased these tapes. It's you. You gotta find new tapes.
I got a better idea. Follow me. When you're walking down the street and you see a little ghost, what you gonna do about Ghostbusters?
What is that?
That's the Ghostbusters theme song.
No.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Something strange. Stay where you are. I'm on my way.
Love it.
It's
Great choice.
Basically, for those people that don't know, it's this comedy that is about these two people that work in a video store back when they were a thing. And basically, Jack Black walks in, he's like electrocuted, has all this like magnetism, and wipes all the tapes in the store. So
Yeah,
basically,
that's right.
they get this bright idea to re-record all the films and basically do them DIY. So recreating Ghostbusters, Rush Hour, all these like classic films, but with zero budget, no materials, no actors, just like scrounging what they can.
Yep.
And this like really guerrilla filmmaking DIY approach was something I'd never really seen before. I've always grown up watching the behind the scenes of films and seeing how they came together, seeing everything kind of like from a very high level, like Hollywood standard $1 million budget, and then seeing something that was actually achievable. You can get DIY materials and just make something yourself. That was really inspiring to me as a young kid.
Absolutely. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that came out in around 2007, 2008, was it?
2008, yeah.
Yeah. So can I ask how young you would have been then, Marcus?
Yeah, I know, some baby. So I would have been 11 years old.
Wow.
11 years old.
Yeah. And can you remember at the time, were you familiar with the movies that they were, recreating in the film? Yeah, most of them you're familiar with. Yeah.
So my parents were pretty relaxed with what they let me watch. So they had like a mountain of movies, like VHS tapes, DVDs. Imagine Smaug from The Hobbit, but instead of gold coins, it's just like movies. This is my parents' house. So basically, I just had access to all the classics, all different kinds of genre films. So I've been watching a lot of films already, and then seeing them recreated with things that I had laying around the house.
Yep.
It was just like, oh my God, like the chains of creativity were just broken. Like there's no barrier to being able to create films.
Yeah.
And that was hugely inspiring.
Fantastic. Yeah. And obviously the film you talked about before you made, The Thing Next Door, probably wasn't your first attempt at making something because it was very professional. So after seeing Be Kind Rewind, what was sort of the first thing you did to, come up with or even create your own film? What was the journey from there for you?
Yeah, so my first ever film was a zombie movie called Day of the Dead, which is not an original title whatsoever because it is a Day of the Dead film. It's
one of the George A. Romero ones, isn't it?
Yeah, the third film in the George Romero zombie trilogy, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and then Day of the Dead, which is actually my favorite out of the three. But I actually didn't know that the film existed when I made it. So I just thought I would come out with this great title, this avant-garde zombie classic. It was like 10 minutes long, filmed in one day and edited that night.
Fantastic.
And it was awful. It's so bad. But I got all my friends together and we just made this zombie movie with fake guns, fake like prosthetics, fake blood, filmed on this tiny little like pocket camera with a tripod. All the takes were like wide angle, no whatsoever, no sound effects or some sound effects. Terrible. But anyway, super fun. And after that, I was addicted. I was just like making short film after short film, action films, zombie films, horror films, comedies, me playing multiple characters.
Yeah.
But that was like the spark. And I think Be Kind Rewind kind of like lit that fire underneath me.
So cool.
Which was really cool.
Yeah. And I guess every generation has a film that inspires young, independent or amateur filmmakers to pick up a camera and, get out there and, in the 90s, you know, I grew up as a teen in the 90s, and I was thinking about filmmaking, and, you know, I finally settled on writing and script writing, not sort of behind the camera. But for me, it was like Pulp Fiction, which was not Quentin Tarantino's first film. It was his second film, but it was as a director, but it was the first film of his that I saw. And it absolutely blew me away in the fact that it was so low budget and simple. And another one that stands out is Clerks by Kevin Smith, who filmed that while he was working in the convenience store. And then, you know, the rest is history and stuff. So it's interesting that for you and your generation, it's Be Kind, Rewind. And I think the film came out at an interesting time where DVDs were around and starting to replace videos, and the video stores were starting to slowly drop off. And what's your memory of video stores? Because I guess you had access to them for a while before they all sort of disappeared, but what was sort of your experience of video stores?
So obviously I'm very young, so I kind of missed out on the boom of the VHS era.
Yep.
I still have a very fond memory of going to video stores though, because I lived in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, and there was many like Blockbuster, Video Easy, video stores around, and I'd go there, I'd look at the DVD covers, which is probably what started my fascination with movie posters and just like the art of movies. I would look at the covers, read the blurbs on the back, borrow the DVD or buy like a pre-owned copy, and then start like devouring the behind the scenes content. Because there's just like in this insatiable like thirst to know like how the film was made. And if I was too scared to watch the film, I would watch the behind the scenes before I'd watch the actual film. So I know like how it was made, or like what all the scary parts would be.
Yeah, just to kind of desensitize yourself a bit to the horror.
But I can still remember there's like a very visceral memory of like the smell of the video stores I went to. Like they always had like this sweet smell to them, or like a popcorn smell that is just like ingrained in my DNA now. And I actually really miss the act of going to a video store and exploring, looking through it, even finding video games. I also found video games through video stores as well. There's just something about that you just don't get with streaming. That I think the streaming is very convenient. I love it to bits, but there's something about it that feels quite special.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny because when the DVD explosion started, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can pause, I can skip scenes, I can go back without rewinding. There's all the bonus content. And then VHS seemed sort of obsolete, and DVDs kept video stores going for a while because obviously they switched to video. But then piracy really affected people going to the movies, and that's addressed in this film, where when they start making these films, Jack Black and Mos Def, some intellectual property people show up and crash the party, don't they? Yeah,
real thing. Yeah,
absolutely. So so it was definitely a thing, you know. And I think my observations, having, you know, grown up with video stores, VHS, DVD, streaming, even the early days of Netflix where you would get the DVD sent to you, and now streaming, you're right. And I was talking about someone else with this recently, where it is really convenient to hop on your phone or your laptop or your tablet or your TV and pick up wherever you left off with your film and watch it across multiple devices and times of day. But something about getting into the car or walking down to the video store, wandering up and down the aisles, looking at the spines of the videos and picking only 5 for the week that you could take home. That's missed. And I think there's that nostalgia is sort of coming back. You've got people like collecting VHS tapes now and stuff. So do you think we could maybe see the return of the video store in some way, or is streaming just too dominant? What do you reckon?
I think so. I don't think VHS is coming back as a format. I think we've moved beyond that point as a society. I'm fine with the quality of what we have. I think there's just the act of community and the place. It's like the physical act of going somewhere to experience that I don't think will ever go away in its entirety. It's like going to a bookstore.
Yep.
The same thing can be said about books. Absolutely. There's a rise of audiobooks, Kindle, but there's still that need for that tactile feel of holding a physical book in your hands.
Absolutely.
I feel like movies, there's an element of that. Even vinyl has made a comeback.
That's
So
it. Yeah, vinyl's made a comeback. Maybe VHS will make a comeback, and people will be, selling a 1996 VHS copy of Independence Day for like $1,000. Like
yeah,
you never know. I think if I had a look around, I've probably still got a couple of old VHS tapes. I've got one
yeah.
behind me here, which you can't see, which is of Freddy's Dead, the sixth Nightmare on Elm
Oh,
Street
yeah.
film, and
A classic.
the flap that opens, it has like his claw mark on it and stuff. And
That's cool.
I'm hanging on to that because that'll be worth something one day. But
Well, that's
yeah,
the
look,
cool thing. Like, it's the art. It's the art of it. Like, that's
absolutely.
what people are probably missing. It's actually physically holding something, and you
For
just don't
sure.
have that streaming.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there is movie memorabilia, and obviously you've got a lot behind you there, and I know you've got some to talk about with your next couple of films as well. So we'll come to that. But just lastly on this film before we move on, is there like out of all the films that the characters recreate, would you say there's one that's your favorite or a standout scene in the movie for you?
It's been a really, really long time since I've seen this film. I'd say the stuff with Ghostbusters sticks out in my mind. I think that's the main one that they really focus
Yep,
on. But it's
definitely.
just something about seeing them in like really dodgy costumes.
Yep.
They've got the ghost, the like tinsel on string with the rod. Like,
Yeah,
that's something I can do. Like, that's why it excites me, because I love that DIY energy of just grabbing random stuff and creating the illusion of something. It's like a magic trick. You
for
can see how
sure.
it's made, and then that
Yep.
makes it really endearing and makes it compelling.
100%. And you know what? It's how every filmmaker started,
Exactly. Yeah.
and if you look online, I think you can find the very early works of Spielberg, and
Yeah.
recently there was that film about his childhood, The Fablemans, where it shows you how he made
Yeah.
his film. So that's definitely worth a watch. And then you have some directors who started off making really bad amateur films and never got out of that. You may have heard of
Yeah.
Edward D. Wood Jr.
Yes.
and who
Yes.
made Plan 9 from Outer Space
I
and
love that film. I
Glenn and
love it
Glenda,
because
and
you can see
yeah,
it. It's like it wears its heart on its sleeve. It's not
100%.
trying to be
Yeah.
perfect. It's
No.
just making, it's like scrappy. It's like,
Yep.
I'm going to make this film. This is my vision. And I don't have the budget to make it a masterpiece, but I'm going to make it because I'm going to make it. And that's
Yep.
it. And then it
And there
works.
was a time when we knew we were watching a film and we could tell it was special effects. And
Yeah.
we looked past that and we used our imagination and we were like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to pretend that that's really a line. These days, special effects are so seamless. You're like, is this actually happening? Like
Yeah.
in The
You lose some of
Revenant,
the
where
magic.
Leonardo DiCaprio gets attacked by the bear. So
Yeah.
realistic. But when you look at the special effects, it's just a couple of guys pulling him around. But
Yeah.
these days, it's like you don't have to use your imagination. I feel that's
Yeah.
something that's a little bit lost as well. And I
I
think this
agree.
film really captures that really well about two guys just and their love of film and trying to preserve that before
Yeah.
it goes away completely. So awesome choice. Yeah. Well, cool. We might change tack now, Marcus, if that's all right. And I'd love to come to your favorite film of all time. Now, hard choice, I
Big
know.
question.
I've got a top 10 and then I realized I had a second top 10. So I've actually got like 20 favorite films of all time. There's probably three that are like have equal first for me. But
Yeah.
what is that film for you that you're going to talk about today?
Look, I really had to rack my brain to think of this because, as you said, there's like list upon list of different favorite films. It's like, what genre are you talking about? What year are you talking about? What decade? For me, the film that I always come back to and one that has a really meaningful place in my heart is The Goonies.
Yeah.
I
I love
The
it.
Goonies are good
The
enough.
Goonies strikes again.
Are you okay, Mel? Andy, are you all right? Are you all right? What? Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Oh, wow.
The Goonies are good enough to be my favorite film. So 1985, directed by Richard Donner, who famously directed Superman and The Omen. And The Omen is a fantastic horror film. I think it comes close to The Exorcist in a lot of ways. not to start an argument between the two. I think
That'll
it's
be
so
our next
wonderful.
podcast chat next week.
I know there'll be like fists flying. I think it's so wild that Richard Donner can go from the Goonies to Superman to The Omen all in one go. That's pretty crazy. But then Steven
100%.
Spielberg is also attached to the film,
Mhm.
mainly for the story, but I feel like he gets a lot of the credit for the film's success, even though he didn't actually direct the film. I think it has
He was everywhere in the 80s, wasn't he? Like he was executive producer. His name was on the poster because it could put bums on seats. So yeah.
It's like Guillermo del Toro now.
Yep.
You get presented by Guillermo del Toro, and then it sells all these tickets, even though he might only have a little bit of involvement.
Yeah.
Even though he's one of my favorite directors still. But the film is incredible. It spawned so many amazing actors out of it. Sean Astin, Josh Brolin, Corey Feldman, Kei Hee Kwan, Kerry Green and Martha Plimpton. Just perfect cast, all really likable characters, and incredible writing, the perfect mix of humor, darkness for a kids movie, something perfect for adults, but also just enough lightness to welcome kids and enough wonder to take you on an adventure that kind of whisks you away from reality for an hour and 45 minutes and takes you on this adventure that, I don't know, there's not many films that make me feel that sense of wonder and excitement, even as a child and now as an adult. That those experiences are slowly like becoming less and less. There's other films like Raiders of the Lost Ark that I think really capture that same feeling for me. And then there's other films that kind of have similar qualities, like Stand By Me.
Yep.
Or The Adventures of Tintin was another modern one.
Yep.
Feeling like that.
I liked that film. That was cool. Yeah.
I actually think this is another controversial view, that The Adventures of Tintin is a better Indiana Jones film than The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And
I like that. I kind of agree with you, actually. Yeah.
I love it. It's the best. But yeah.
Sure. And look, you're right. The way that it captures childhood and adventure and being with your mates, and it comes from the 80s, which is now, the 80s is so nostalgic and it's everywhere. And we all wish we could be back in the 80s and not in current times. And look, it was the best decade for kids' films. And it was really the first decade of kids' films because, they didn't really make movies for kids or about kids prior to the 80s, right? But what happened is you had all the baby boomers were having kids in the 70s and 80s. So here you've got all these kids and the expansion of suburbia, and there was no mobile phones, there was no internet, it was kids on their bikes going off and exploring the world, and it really captures that. Now, I do have to remind our viewers, if they haven't noticed already, you're a young man. How did you discover the Goonies? It's way before your time.
It is way before my time. I missed out on the 80s. I can put on my fake nostalgia glasses, but I never lived the 80s experience. I never rode a bike in Astoria, Oregon in the 80s. But
you have ridden a bike though, right?
I have, yes.
Yeah, just not in Astoria, Oregon.
Yes, I can ride a bike. So my parents introduced me to the Goonies.
Awesome.
As any good parent would.
Of course.
And they, as I said before, they were pretty relaxed with what they let me watch. So I probably watched it at a very young age. But I remember seeing it, and I don't know what it was about it exactly. I think it was just this sense of wonder. I think it's like every little kid's dream to go on this like adventure of a lifetime, discover something in a familiar place that feels boring, and
go on a treasure hunt. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I would love that if I opened up a cupboard and there was a treasure map and I get to go off on an adventure. That sense of wonder and of the unknown is something that I really crave and something that I'm constantly searching for. And this film really gives me that, and it gave me that as a child, because it's so much fun to watch this film.
It's a great time, and it's the energy of the cast and the young actors have such great chemistry together. And what really stood out for me, because I watched a lot as a kid, and then I kind of forgot about it and rediscovered it again in my late teens once I was able to rent videos by myself. And what stuck with me in my memory of it was the music. I
Oh,
think the
so
music
good.
in this film is absolutely awesome in every way, from the adventure chase music to the mysterious music when he's looking at the map.
Yes.
Yeah, and visually, or what other aspect of the film visually, or in terms of how it's made, stands out for you? Like, what really draws you back to it in terms of that?
Everything. I mean,
Mm.
the writing, I think, is so strong in the Goonies. I think that it's so witty and so sharp in the dialogue. It's just rapid fire banter between kids, and it doesn't feel forced.
No.
And there's not many films that make me really like laugh out loud. And this is a film that doesn't matter how many times I've seen it, it still makes me laugh with how funny it is. It's so dry at times.
Yep.
And I think of the scene where Chunk is getting interrogated by the Fratellis, and they're sticking his hand into the blender, and
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like pouring out his like deepest, darkest secrets.
Yeah, yeah. It's going on for about 20 minutes. Yeah.
There's another scene. Well, there's two scenes that really move me. There's the scene where they find the treasure map, and there's this like sense of wonder, and they're like about to go on their epic quest to find One-Eyed Willie's treasure. And then there's the scene where they actually do find One-Eyed Willie. Spoiler. And Mikey, played by Sean Astin, has this beautiful moment with One-Eyed Willie, just like sharing like this tender moment of like being a outsider, being a misfit, and being joined by his friend shortly after. I don't know
Yep.
what it is, and the music swells. It's just really beautiful. It's
It
such a
is.
satisfying moment.
Absolutely. It's a beautifully made film. It's really polished. It's like it has kind of a blockbuster sense about it, especially as when it picks up the pace and they go deeper into the cave network and they discover the ship. And, obviously you've got Richard Donner, who directed Superman, and Spielberg kind of giving some inspiration. So it's a film that all ages can watch, I find. It's great to introduce to younger generations as well. And it takes us back to that time, that we all wish we could all go back and relive or live if we hadn't lived it before. And that's why we're seeing it revisited in shows like Stranger Things and the new version of It that came out a few years back, which was set in the 80s as well, captured that really well, I thought. Now, I do have to mention that you've actually got some memorabilia from the film. Would you kindly share that with us?
Yeah, so obviously I'm a massive dork and geek. So I love to collect memorabilia from films. And The Goonies being one of my favorite films ever, I had to have something from it. And luckily, there are so many iconic props and paraphernalia from the film that are central to the story. So I have the skull and bones here,
So cool.
with the writing on the back.
What does the writing on the back say? Can you remind me?
Oh, it's in Spanish. I believe it's like the year. You're really testing my memory here. I should really like try and Google Lens that and like see if I can get it to read. I also have the doubloon that they used to find the Fratelli house.
That's right, where he's holding it up on the coastline.
Another incredible moment where he's holding it up and the mountains line up. And then I also have the treasure map here, which I think is absolutely beautiful. I have something about treasure maps that I love. But
wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
It even has the music.
Oh, the musical notes on the back.
It does, yeah. So
that is so cool.
Shout out to the person that made this. His name's Relic Maker. He's on the Replica Prop Forum. So if you're looking for this stuff, he sells it on there, and just incredible work, artistry.
Maybe we'll share a link to his site below the video and below this episode for anyone who wants to check it out. Always happy to help another film memorabilia maker and get their stuff out there. So cool. And I can see behind you, you've got a bit of a collection of things. You've got a stormtrooper helmet. You've got Jason's hockey mask, and it's just it's a movie buff's dream back there. Yeah.
So like horror on this side, and then sci-fi on this side, and then this is just like a free for all of monsters, and then there's actual monsters up here.
Oh, cool. Fantastic. Awesome. Awesome. Is this also the guest room? Like when you have people stay over, do they wake up in the middle of the night and see all this stuff, look at them?
I think that would be pretty cruel to do that to someone. This is just
Unless they're a
home
movie lover,
office.
but if they weren't expecting it,
Look,
yeah.
I don't think anyone wants to wake up and see Chucky looking down at them. I mean, I'm okay with that, but
Oh,
this is my home
me too.
office. So this is where I do all my designing. This is where I do just like my general creative work. And then I also play the drums in here and just geek out. So
Fantastic. It's where the magic happens. Awesome. You gotta have that space, absolutely. Yeah, I'm in that space as well. But what you can't see off camera is some clothes rack drying all our kids' clothes because it's raining outside. But that's okay. It's a multi-purpose room. Awesome. Well, again, for those who've been living under a rock, you've just heard about the Goonies. If you haven't seen it, get out there, find a copy, watch it. You'll never unwatch it again. It's just a film you keep coming back to. If it's on TV, I'll stop what I'm doing and I'm watching it, even though I have it on DVD and I've seen it more times than I can count. And I'm sure you're pretty much the same as well. But it's just one of those films. It's like you can't not like it. There's something in it for everybody. And yeah, it just it's a classic. So always great to talk about the Goonies. Never a dull moment. So now let's come to your last film, and this one's a biggie, I'm pretty sure, from what you've shared with me. And this is the film that you feel everyone needs to see at least once in their lifetime. So this makes people think of, the classics like The Godfather, and we've had Citizen Kane on the show, talked about Casablanca, Apocalypse Now, all those and look, it might sound like cliches, but those films are classics for a reason. So yeah, please tell us, Marcus, what is this film that everyone must see in their life sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I mean, they're all great picks, but my top pick for a film that everyone should see is Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. So released in 1969, 8 years before Star Wars. I think this is a big factor to consider when thinking of modern sci-fi. Starring Keir Dullea and Gary Lockwood, both incredible in the film. I really believe that 2001: A Space Odyssey is Stanley Kubrick's magnum opus. It's his best film by far, and I actually think it's the greatest sci-fi film of all time. I don't think it's ever been topped. As much as I'm a sci-fi nerd, I love Star Wars. I love the sci-fi genre, especially from the 70s. I feel like it peaked at 1969 with 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I still believe it has the best practical effects in any film ever. I just don't think that it has ever been touched. And I will continue to defend this film until the day I die.
Right. And for those who are not familiar with the film, and look, sci-fi is not everybody's cup of tea. I'm aware of this film and its influence, but the film buff community will kill me because I've never actually seen it. But it is on my list. I have discovered some of the classics recently. I've been working my way through, and I'll get to it. But yeah, just quickly summarize what is it actually about?
That's a tough question. It is a very long and very large, sprawling epic of a film. So the film actually takes place across thousands of years. So it's kind of split into three distinct sections. There is The Dawn of Man, which kind of chronicles the evolution of humans into cave people, or not even to cave people, just to primitive apes. Then there's this famous jump cut, switching from the bone flying into the air to the spaceship, which is the future. And basically that has the battle between humanity and AI at the heart of the story. So what does it mean to be human? How does artificial intelligence interact with humanity? Which I think is really relevant with today's society. And
absolutely.
then the final part of the film is the Stargate sequence, which kind of takes you beyond humanity and into the next stage of human evolution. So there's 3 distinct sections, each with their own beautiful poetic message that comes through, incredible imagery, iconic moments, and I just love the film to bits. I've seen it many, many times. I've shown it to people. People either love it or they fall asleep. It's like no in between. You either love it or you're going to fall asleep.
Absolutely. And I imagine it's a film that each time you see it, you notice something different. You absorb more of it because it is so dense and so complex. And based on a novel as well. Who wrote the novel? Can you remind us?
Arthur C. Clarke.
Arthur C. Clarke, right. I knew he was one of the sci-fi guys. Yeah. Way ahead of its time. I mean, the book, do you know when the book was released? Was it in 50s, maybe? Early 60s?
I think it might have been 1960s.
Right.
It probably would have been around the same time as Frank Herbert's Dune. So I recently read the first 2 Dune novels. I know I say Dune really weird. Don't mock me. But they're incredible books, and Dune actually inspired Star Wars and probably inspired 2001 as well. I don't know which one came first, the chicken or the egg, but yeah.
And there's a lot of debate that Star Wars is just the Lord of the Rings in space. You know, that George Lucas basically just ripped off the art of the trilogy. And but anyway, that's another conversation. There's definitely some similarities.
We're not going to open that can of worms here.
No. I think we'll schedule another conversation for that. But but you know, films. You know, good films always spark debate and conversation. So. And just coming back to when the film, I guess the book was conceived by its author, made as a film in 1969, and Kubrick was ahead of his time and ahead of every other filmmaker who's preceded him ever since. I think he had a vision of humanity and people that we still struggle to understand, and the kind of stories and characters he focused on, who you either despised, like A Clockwork Orange, or characters who you put up on this pedestal, or characters that we didn't really understand their motivations. And you look at things like The Shining and Eyes Wide Shut, and, you know, such a distinct range of films he made, and sadly passed away well before his time. And a little interesting fact I found out was one of my favorite Spielberg films is AI, Artificial Intelligence, which was released in 2001. And that was meant to be Kubrick's next film after Eyes Wide Shut. And I think he'd started developing it. And then suddenly passed away. And if you watch the film, the first half is very Kubrickian, and then the second half is a Spielberg film. And a lot of people didn't quite like that, but like you said, anything that was made in the past around AI these are the films people are going to be going back to now because of the acceleration of AI. So, given you've seen this film so many times, I'm sure you've got some thoughts on AI, and if we can maybe just jump to that topic for a minute. And are you excited about where AI is going at the moment? Are you concerned? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a really complicated topic because I feel like there is a lot of benefits to come with AI and the development of it. I think the rate that we're developing and moving towards AI as a replacement for human creativity, especially in creative fields, I have a big problem with AI.
Yeah, same.
I'm fine with it being used as a tool to assist the artists. I think when it replaces human creativity and human jobs is when it becomes a really complicated issue. But I think that AI can be used as a real tool to benefit humanity. But I think we're moving at such a rate that we're bypassing caution, and we're really going beyond what probably is reasonable in such a short amount of time. It's dangerous. It's
100%.
really territory.
It is.
No one has the answer.
No.
The only way we're going to find out is by going there, and I worry that we go there too soon.
Yeah, and I think this happened a little over 10 years ago with the explosion of social media, you know, and how that changed the way we interact, and that's had some benefits. It's helped people reconnect with people who they've lost contact with, form groups, but then also it's had a very negative impact on society. And I think, you know, history tends to repeat itself. You know, we're always looking for that next big thing and that next exciting innovation or development. But when it comes to technology and you know, human character and potential, the technology often moves faster, even though it's made by us, which is a bit of a irony in itself. But yeah, I think we might, if we can talk about it just briefly, I think we have to sort of observe, not get too caught up in it, and just remember that at the end of the day, technology can't be replaced by human connection, things like moral judgment, instinct that we have that technology will never have. As smart as it is, it will never.
This is the scariest part about AI, is this is the one that can potentially replace in some form, not fully, not ever, but it is the one thing that is quite scary, because AI is artificial intelligence. It is meant to gain some sort of consciousness at some point. And the further we go down that path, the lines become very blurry between what is human and what is machine. And I feel like there hasn't been any technology in the past that has attempted that merge. And that's why I think it's very scary, the rate that we're moving, because there's already such a gray period between like what is real, what is fake, what's a deep fake, what's real footage, what's real audio, what's fake audio. It just really blurs the lines. And I feel like it will have really interesting consequences 5 years down the track. Even 1 year down the track, it will be wildly different to where we are now. Even AI video, the rate that it moves, it's just, it might not look good now. Give it 12 months, we'll be in a different place.
Well, we won't be able to tell the difference, will we? Yeah. And films like 2001 obviously predicted that this was where we were heading, and other films touched on it, like obviously the Terminator franchise with the rise of Skynet. And people always joke saying, oh, it's Skynet now. Skynet's coming to get us. We're going to have Terminators coming back from the future and stuff. But just coming back to your film for a bit, 2001, I guess apart from the, you know, the grandness of the film and its impact, what else can you take away from that film? Like what will people get out of it? Like a stronger sense of what it means to be human? Will they start questioning everything? Like what else really is really sort of, you know, integral about it?
I see 2001: A Space Odyssey as a religious experience, something where you watch it and it's like you're going to the church of Kubrick and you're seeing like this very distinct vision of where humanity is going and where it came from. There isn't many films where I'd use that word, where it's like this transcending experience of watching it. There's a few films that come to mind. The Devils from 1971, directed by Ken Russell, is another one where it's this incredible, really distinct vision about religion itself. Memoria is another one that's more recent, from 2021, with Tilda Swinton. And that one I described as like 2001, but focused on sound. Is a very strange film.
Okay.
Very, very much worth watching. But I think the reason that people should watch 2001 is that I think you'll just leave with a new view on the themes that it explores. And I think that if you're receptive to it, it will take you on a trip. The tagline for the film was the ultimate trip for a reason, because it is like taking a psychedelic drug without actually taking it. If you do that as well, I don't know what's going to happen to you, but you're not going to come out the same. I tell you that.
Yeah, I'm sure many people have done that and could probably comment. Feel free to share experiences with us if you're listening. Wow. Well, amazing, Marcus. Like I was aware of the you know, the impact of that film, but the way you've described it now and so like eloquently and with so much passion, I'm really inspired to go and watch it now. And I will. You know, I'm on a bit of a break now from work, so I will check it out over the fortnight, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know my thoughts. Absolutely, yeah. So 3 very different and distinct films. Most people know the Goonies. Some have probably heard of 2001. It's like, oh, it's one of the classics, but never thought about sitting down to watch it. And many people may not have never heard of Be Kind Rewind. You know, it was a small film that came out, small budget. Had Jack Black in it, who was pretty big in the early 2000s. but I don't think it made a huge dent on the film scene. But it's definitely worth a watch for anyone who wants to revisit that time when we transitioned from video to DVD, and maybe we'll see a similar film now about the transition from DVD to streaming, which could be interesting. So
Okay.
yeah, and just to sort of wrap up, mate, any other films you've seen recently or about to watch that you could recommend, or whether they're connected to these films or something completely different? Because obviously you are a movie lover through and through. People listening and watching this right now would come to you and ask you for movie recommendations, I'm sure. So yeah, what are you watching or about to watch? Can you tell us?
The last film I watched was Triangle of Sadness.
Oh, right.
Which I enjoyed. I think that it's the kind of film you would want to watch with a big crowd, because there's a lot of really bombastic moments that would elicit a lot of crowd reaction. I also saw Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which is a beautiful film, like a queer romance between two women. Absolutely beautiful. One of the most beautiful films I've seen in a long time.
Wow.
And then I also watched Smile,
Yes.
movie that came out last year with Sosie Bacon, Kevin Bacon's daughter. That was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
It was actually really
I liked
fun.
that. I thought that was a very effective horror film. Yeah.
Yeah, it really subverts your expectations at times, because it leans into the cliche of horror movies, and then it subverts your expectations at the last second, which I appreciate. And I'm always down for a great horror movie. Surprisingly, none of my picks were horror movies, even though I'm a horror movie fanatic. But I tried to pick films that fit the bill. But if you haven't seen The Shining from Kubrick, that's my favorite horror movie of all time. I'm a massive Kubrick fan. But yeah, just go out and see the movies. Any movie, just go out and see movies. Oh, and Across the Spider-Verse, I just saw that too.
Oh, right, the Spider-Man animation stuff. Yeah.
Fantastic. If you like,
I've only heard good things about that. So
if you like animation,
on those films myself, but yeah, I've heard good things. Yeah, awesome. Well, at the time of this recording, we're in late June of 2023, so big Hollywood blockbuster season is upon us. So obviously we've just had Fast and Furious Part 27, I think, come out. We've got the next Indiana Jones coming out, which I'll go see purely for nostalgia. I grew up on Indiana Jones. So that's my recommendations of what I'm seeing. But, unfortunately, podcast episodes must come to an end, although our conversation will never end. We'll come back to these movie chats time and time again. But in terms of being a guest on My Movie Story, Marcus, it's been great having you, mate. A real pleasure to hear from someone with such a passion for film and filmmaking as well, and someone of such a young age having such a wide knowledge of films from different eras. And I think that's great. And, I'm sure you count yourself quite lucky to have parents who introduce you to these films. And
I do.
Myself having older siblings, that's how I discovered a lot of films as well. And then it was once I got that video card, I was at Blockbuster every week renting whatever caught my interest. And so it's great to have that introduction to movies and that appreciation, which you definitely have. So thank you very much, Marcus. Thank you also those who have tuned in and listening. If this is your first time or you're a repeat viewer or listener, thank you for your company and joining us on My Movie Story. You can check out links to Marcus's Instagram and YouTube page just below the link, the video or audio episode that you're listening or watching to. We'll make sure we'll give the guy who made the Goonies stuff a bit of a mention as well. So thanks for listening. Marcus, thanks very much, and enjoy the movies.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian.
All right, take care.